This is a true story. When I was in college, I pledged for a fraternity that was a little wild. And if you wanted to make your mark, you had to get pretty extreme. This was back when everyone was watching shows like Jackass, and the bar was set pretty high for weird stuff. I started doing this while we were just sitting around high, but eventually people would make jokes about it at parties, and by the time I was a senior, a party pretty much didn't end until I performed. So, I shot things out of my ass. We'd funnel beer in there, and I'd squirt it out into the air, or we'd use Coke or any other soda. People liked the foam. I even used to do some of those Gogurt-style yogurt drinks, because we'd say it looked like cum. This was a long time ago, guys. We were very immature. Anyway, I'm probably one of the few people who can say shooting liquid out of my ass at a party got me laid. The kind of girls who came to our frat parties were just looking for fucking insanity and wanted to wake up the next day with nothing but a few fragments of a completely psychotic night. When you're the guy with a room full of people begging you to do something, let's just say girls are attracted to the attention, even if you just shot 8 ounces of milk out of your sphincter. This story does not have a happy ending. As most people with a colon will tell you, this is the same device you poop out of. Gay dudes go through a lot of care to make sure they're sufficiently empty and clean before engaging in sex, because they know what can happen if luck is not on your side. Drunk and high college guys who make a habit of spraying butt beer don't exactly take those precautions. My defining moment was a party we had before winter break. I was pretty hammered, and by this time in my career as a butt squirter, I could basically sense when my name was going to come up at a party. The guys thought it would be funny if we made lemon drops, vodka and lemon juice in my ass, and then made the new pledges drink shots of it. Nobody thought out the logistics or the idea that lemon juice burns. Nobody thought much about anything. They just thought the idea of a pledge drinking butt liquor was as good as life got, so there we were, literally juicing lemons, while I bent over and relaxed. At this point I don't think I need to tell the rest of the story, but anyone reading this far deserves confirmation. Something about the burning of either the lemon or vodka, when my butt was only used to beer and soda, caused a pretty intense reaction. My memory of the sensation is very hazy. I just know it burned and I felt like I lost all control. And yes, I fired out of my ass a hailstorm of vodka and shit with a hint of lemon. Keep in mind this was a new setup, with me squatting over a row of shot glasses, 6 to be exact, and from my vantage point and state of mind I didn't know anything was different from my usual performance except that it burned. People started screaming, and even that took me a few minutes before I realized what happened. I turned around and saw a table covered in inky brown crap with foamy liquid everywhere. Reaction from the lemon juice? No clue. Barely any of it made it into the shot glasses, so that was a bad idea from the start, and there was an entire frat house of very hot girls looking at a shit-covered table with me perched on it like a gargoyle with irritable bowel syndrome. Women vomited almost immediately. We're all drunk, so vomiting is an option under the best of circumstances, but a table of shit, turns out, is the perfect catalyst for mass vomiting and hysteria. People were running through the vomit of others to get outside and yak up their own stomachs into the bushes. Even after people left, none of us could sleep in the house because of the smell, and we were all too drunk to clean it up. That night, with an ass still stinging from lemon juice and vodka, I slept bare-assed on the grass in the backyard. I didn't get laid. Mandatory not today but 20 years ago. I am 16 and horny. We didn't yet have the internet, and this was still the days of searching nearby woods for scattered magazines held together by many long rains. It was also the days of waiting for your mom to go to the grocery store and using your free time to try to find literally anything new in the house to have sex with. This was one of those days. My mom left for the grocery store, and I had an idea: duct tape a toilet paper roll filled with wet toilet paper to my penis. Make sure it's really tight. Then, Create a rope from duct tape and wrap it around the blade of the ceiling fan. Sit on one side of the ceiling fan, and as the blade spins, it will pull and release the tube. Brilliant. All starts well as I sit on a desk chair below the fan. A bit slow, but working, so I turn it up. I start to notice that since there is no swivel, the duct tape is twisting and shortening. It's pulling violently on my pubs and skin. I can't get the fucking thing off. Fuck. I stand up to buy myself time. Shut off the fan, pull the string and wait. Oh fuck, still going. I'm on my tippy toes and my pubs are ripping. I pull the string and the fan begins to slow, but it's still twisting. I slam my hand into the fan to stop it. The fan breaks out of the ceiling, but I'm free. As I unpackage my pleasure tube, I find I'd ripped a fistful of pubs out. My foreskin was twisted like an Indian sunburn, checkered with blood and tears, and the head of my penis is a ghostly gray. It took 24 hours for the penis head to turn from mayonnaise to plum. My penis basically molted over the next 3 weeks, growing a new layer of penis over the old penis. I still have a long white scar down the shaft that has no feeling. Good times. You're like a sadomasochistic MacGyver. Might not be my biggest issue. Story time. When I was a young lad at the tender age of 11, I discovered that my morning glory was more than just a way to keep me from peeing the bed in my sleep. That's what Dad told me it was. It was so much more. At the beginning I thought it was just like pee and would dry up. No. My sheets got stiff after day 3 and 15 sessions later, so I threw them out the window in the middle of winter, claiming I lost them building a fort outside. I don't think my parents bought that, but who knows, they didn't make a big deal about it. They wouldn't be found until springtime, when the snow melted, so I was safe. Then I figured I'd finish on the floor and just wipe it up. I didn't pay attention to the fact it never seemed to pile up. A week later I discovered my dog was sneaking in and lapping it up. After that I started hoarding toilet paper, but I couldn't just throw it out. They would know, or so my child brain assumed. I searched for a way to make them go away and never be found. There was a loose vent in my room and I shoved it aside to see the wall cavity that went down to the basement in the fiery trap we lived in. Perfect. I could get them to the basement and burn them later. I started using the vents in the walls to dispose of my used sheets and the toilet paper cardboard. Turns out it wasn't a clean drop and the first few got snagged. The couple after got snagged on those. Then they compacted. I eventually realized the problem had solved itself. They would never come out. Back to Jack in it. 10 years later. I go to college, my parents move out. Someone buys the house from the landlord and guts it. That someone happens to be my niece's father's girlfriend's family. While picking my niece up at some family event, the new owner mentions finding tons of weird shit hidden in the walls. When we were talking about renovations, since all his tools and shit were all over the yard, but he does not elaborate. My niece's father doesn't know I lived there. I was the sole connection to the history of the home and I wasn't saying anything. I can tell no one I filled the walls of my childhood home with a decade of cum rags. I mean, I bet if you took the time you could see the economic status of my family in that strata. It starts with single-ply industrial quality sandpaper, works its way up to the soft lotiony stuff, then 2006 when Dad lost his job. I'm pretty sure by the end of that ordeal the doctor thought my dick had jaundice. I ripped so many sheets out of the yellow pages. Rather, I can tell no one but you sick fucks. Thanks for listening. When I was in high school, I had a potted plant in my room that looked a little like a mini palm tree. It had a bare stem and a head of stringy leaves at the top. At some point I decided that the soil in the pot was a convenient place to jizz whenever I masturbated. This went on happily for a few weeks, but eventually, it seems the ants found it. For several days there was a constant stream of ants going to my cum plant. Of course, during this time I made sure to deposit more fresh loads for them to eat. Eventually, it seems they decided that it was such a good location, they would move in. I noticed that they started carrying in these little white pellets that I assume were probably eggs. There were also a lot of winged ants that showed up, and they would hang around uselessly at the base of the plant. I kept the ant colony well fed with jizz for some months, and sometimes if I had some spare time I would just sit and stare at them busily running around with their little white egg pods or whatever they were. Unfortunately, I don't remember how this story ended. I think my mom probably noticed the ants and sprayed everything and killed them all. But at least for a little while I had this wonderful motherly feeling of protecting my little colony and nourishing it with my nut milk.